After that, so like this is also the generosity of entrepreneurs. So aggregate knowledge. By now I'm at August Capital because I can't get a job at the foundation. So Dave Marquardt at August Capital said, "Why don't you hang out with us?"
You're like an EIR, or what?
Yeah, I was an EIR.
Okay.
And you know, why would anybody hire me? I mean, I'd still made no investments.
Again, it doesn't make sense to me. IPO, the company started.
Yeah, so now I'm at August Capital, and I run into this company called Aggregate. Well, it started out called StartPage 2.0. Terrible name. And it's Paul Martino and Chris Law, and they say, we got this company called StartPage 2.0. And I'm like, okay, terrible name, I hate it. And they're like, okay, well, here's what we do. And I'm like, you're not close enough to the money, this doesn't make sense. So they pitch us again, I pass again, pitch us again, I pass again. So one day, I get a call from Paul. He says, hey, we'd like to talk to you. I'm like, okay, great. So I go there to talk to him. And he says, we just raised our Series A from Kleiner Perkins. And so I'm like, well, okay. And by now, ODO's out of business, you know, because Apple gave podcasting away. And ODO was about to become Twitter, but it hadn't happened yet.
Yeah.
And Dig hadn't really taken off yet. So now I'm feeling like pretty much a loser. And I'm just like, okay, great. So you raised money from
You're rubbing it in or something.
Yeah, this is you telling me I'm an idiot. Congratulations, I'm an idiot. You raised your money, that's cool. Whatever, you know. And Paul goes, no, that's not how we feel about it. You were the one who was honest with us and challenged us. And so we talked to Randy Komisar, Kleiner, and he said you could be an advisor.
Wow.
So we'd like to have you be an advisor. We need you to sign a couple of agreements and stuff like that. But, you know,
you didn't invest anything, but you just became a formal advisor.
Yeah.
Wow, how cool.
And so, like, that was another example where it was the generosity of the entrepreneur, right? It was, you know, like a lot of entrepreneurs after the fact say, oh, thank you so much for believing in us and investing in us. But I really think we were the first venture firm that got started by entrepreneurs. And so, you know, it's important to remember that.
Well,
yeah.
Well, and with ODO, Evan gave the money back to many of the investors. Hey, ODO, and then he invited some to come back in, or depending on the stories, that you probably know the correct story. But the story is that not everyone was invited back, but the ones that, you know, George Zachary, yourself, there were others that they liked and whose money they wanted again. You were on that list, right? And so you got. Is that right?
So like I said, I don't know why Evan let me do it the second time. You'd have to ask him, right? But
we'd like to.
But here's the thing. He said, I'm gonna give you your money back. And I said, look, you don't owe me anything. I made an investment. You win some, you lose some. I don't need my money back. And I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus here, but certain investors were kind of disenchanted with ODO and wanted their money back. And so he had to sort of come to an agreement with all the investors to get their money back.
Wow. And
so I just said, okay, any entrepreneur who gives me 100% of their money back, I don't care what your next startup is. I don't care if it's a massage parlor. You know, I'm going to invest
at scale.
Yeah. I don't even care if it's at scale. You know, it's like, as far as I'm concerned, this money I invested in ODO is dead money. And so it's either permanently dead or it's dead till it proves it's alive someday. So I said, so what are you working on? He said, well, I got this side project. Okay, what's it called? Well, we're not sure what to call it. Either Voicemail 2.0 or Twitter. And it was spelled TWTTR. And I was like, I hate the fact that you took the vowels out because Flickr, that's like what Flickr does. You can't. Flickr did that. You got to be your own thing, right? So I said, okay, great. I'd like to invest in Twitter. And he says, well, we haven't decided to take money yet. And I said, well, whenever you decide to, I'd like to invest. And so I said, what does Twitter do anyway? And he says, well, you say what you're doing. And I'm like, okay, well, what happens? What happens after that? That's it. And he goes, oh, I forgot to tell you, 140 characters or less. Because we want to be on cell phones, text messages. Okay, what happens after that? That's it. That's all it does. What's the revenue model? There is no revenue model. What's the roadmap? There is no roadmap. That's it. Now I'm like, hey, I'm an investor in Twitter. I'm filing instructions. When the time comes, I'm in. And I left that meeting thinking, okay, now I've lost the money for sure. It's over. But whatever, Evan's a good guy. I've already lost it once before. There's nowhere to go but up.
That's right. If you're playing with house money.
So this is the other thing I learned about the venture business. One of the things I've learned about the venture business, I could sit here and tell you this story about how I understood the strategic implications of blogging, the fact that microblogs have an order of magnitude more exponential usage and adoption and engagement. But the fact of the matter is, I was just shithouse lucky, right? And it's like, it's important that you recognize when you're lucky, because I think luck is like a goddess. And if you don't worship the goddess of luck, she'll go give it to somebody else. And so I worship the goddess of luck every day that I was part of that Twitter.
How does one worship your goddess of luck? Because she seems to listen.
I hope she'll stay good to me, but I keep worshiping her.
Did you find her at Harvard? Is this part of the
But the other interesting thing was, until about 2009, everybody thought Dig was the better investor.
Yeah. But and the interesting thing about that is I'm sure that helped propel, as you said at the beginning, like those two things built your brand and helped build your pipeline. But Dig, I mean, everyone was talking about Dig all the time, and that's as I was trying to think, like, when did I first hear about Mike Nichols? It was connected to Dig for sure, and I wonder, and you subsequently, and this is another tribute to you, is that. Tony Conrad once said, he was a partner at True, once said that Milk, which maybe was not this massive success, but he said that deal was the hardest deal to get in of that year that it happened, and you were in that, he was in that as well. But Kevin came back, you funded him the first time, and entrepreneurs know who's good, and he went through one run with you, and he said, hey, come back and invest again. I mean, I think that's a huge tribute to you. It's a huge tribute to Floodgate, and this mentality that you're talking about. It's very, I don't know. I mean, you being moved by this it's moving to me as an entrepreneur. I can see it's moving to people in the audience because you feel it, you believe it, you live it. It's authentic. So I wonder, how is it? Is that just because that's the fabric of who you are? Because I've probably interviewed 36 of the top venture capitalists in the Valley. I probably never felt. I mean, you're going to feel weird that I said it, but it never felt someone that I felt was so authentic about believing that. So why? How are you like that? Why? Like, how can somebody that wants to be like that? What attributes do I need to get to get that ingrained in me? What do I need to do?
Well, I guess a couple of thoughts. First of all, to me, sort of the entrepreneur is the greatest. It is sort of like the greatest force in society's food chain, right? Like, entrepreneurs are the only people who create something out of nothing. And, so I always looked at it like, the heroes of the world are the entrepreneurs and the veterans, right? I'm not sure how I'd rank them, but I just always looked at it that way. And now there's a lot of entrepreneurs and they're heroes, but then there's even a subset of them who dare to be legendary. And, it's just a very rare thing, but every now and then you just encounter an entrepreneur who wants to do something totally legendary. And that's what I'm in it for. And so it's not some calculated thing. I'm just like, there'll be 10,000 companies started this year, 10 of them will be legendary, and that's how I want to spend my time with those people. And when you're lucky enough to get involved with one of those, it's just the gift that keeps on giving. It's just a fun ride, and it's awesome. It has a positive impact on things, and I just want to be one of the good guys who was part of that.
What does that mean? A legendary entrepreneur? Give us some characteristics of that, or what attributes do these people have?
Yeah, so there are a couple things. So first of all, I think a lot of people who start companies, just like a lot of people who invest, are just kind of doing startups. And that's different from saying, I'm going to do something that's going to make a fundamental difference. So part of it's just a state of mind, right? But part of it as well is a set of thought habits. So, you know, the metaphor I like to use is the difference between Newton and Einstein. So Newton came up with a set of theories of physics that are fairly intuitive. Like if I drop this microphone, I won't do that, but if I were to drop this microphone, it will accelerate according to times squared, right? But, you know, when Einstein came up with the general theory of relativity, people kind of thought he was smoking weed, right? You couldn't prove Einstein's theories in a lab. You know, in fact, the term thought experiment came from Einstein. You know, imagine an elevator traveling at the speed of light upstairs, right? So in fact, the general theory of relativity was proved, I think, I could be wrong a little bit on history here, but like 7 years after he postulated it. And they had to have some boat out in the middle of the ocean, and there was some kind of an eclipse, and where the sun rays going to bounce, and if they bounce here, Newton was right. If they bounce there, Einstein was right. And that was what made Einstein world famous, was his theory was basically proven that day. Because otherwise, there was like 5 people in the world who could even make sense of what he was saying. So how does that apply to entrepreneurship? Most entrepreneurs tend to gravitate to the ideas that are linear. They tend to gravitate to ideas that involve reasoning by analogy. They tend to gravitate to ideas that make intuitive sense. And one of the things that I've learned about the really great entrepreneurs is they tend to think exponentially. And none of us think exponentially as part of our intuition. You know, we drive to work every day, we brush our teeth every day, we comb our hair every day, we do those things every day. Those are linear activities. And so everything we know about this world we live in is linear. Everything about the genes in our bodies and their experience growing up to this point as a species is linear. But, you know, like Evan Williams, I mean, yeah, I was really lucky, but one thing he said really resonated with me at the time. He said, I figure that if 1 million people write blogs, maybe 10 million people would write microblogs. And if that's true, then the burden of proof is going to be on the people who are negative. And so, you know, Reid Hoffman was the first person I ever met who talked in terms of a rhythm of doublings. I'm going to double my user base every 6 weeks for 18 months. And so Elon Musk, this is my favorite example. So Elon Musk says, I'm not a faster, more efficient version of NASA. His insight's more profound than that. He says, 0.3% of the cost of a rocket is fuel. And the rest of it gets burned up because it doesn't come back. So what if I made a reusable rocket? I could make space travel 100 times more cost effective if I could do that. And so the fundamental thing I've seen in the great entrepreneurs is they have an exponential insight. And, you know, if I were to reduce the task of a great entrepreneur to a simple sentence, it would be, how am I leveraging a current change in technology that follows Moore's law to create an exponential outcome? It's one of the 10 best companies of the year. And that's what I'm looking for. You know, that's what I'm looking for, that's what I'm in it for. And, you know, I'm probably wrong more often than I'm right, but when I'm right, I'm spectacularly right.
So as an entrepreneur, how do I know whether I meet that criteria or not? How do I know, do I just put it through that equation? Hey, am I 100xing the, you know, what do I do?
So people the next, and it's a related question, but people say, okay, well, it's easy to say that, how do you find those? But the reality is, you know, we'll get like 200 business plans a week this year. And I can eliminate 195 of those based on that one question. Is this entrepreneur trying to create an exponentially increasing asymmetric returning business? And so it's more of a process of elimination. You know, if I eliminate 99+% of all business plans,
right away, deal with the rest.
I can look at 100 plans a year seriously, and then 10 of those are going to be truly awesome. And so if I can somehow find a better way to even improve my hit rate even a little more than that, then I got a shot.
You're kind of famous for this term, thunder lizard. wonder if you could